loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is a state of fragmentation. Aloneness is a state of holicity. When we are whole, we become alone. Alone, I am. All this is, I am. All this is. Everything I look at, hear, touch, recognize. I recognize myself. And on the count of recognizing myself, the further recognition takes place. First is unity, then diversity. First, I recognize myself, and then I recognize that there are differences. Let not this recognition of differences override my sense of self, which is always whole.
There is helplessness and uncertainty. There is a strong pent-up energy in the basin. And for me, the only halt is to stay as consciousness. And there is a fear it's possible to get through this process alone.
So is it possible to go through this process alone? Right? It will sound perplexing, but hear this. No, it's not possible to go through this process alone. Why? Because in the ultimate analysis, in the ultimate degree of it all, you are always alone. See? So that's what it really is. No other. Every conflict in the world is a result of the magnitude of that gap between me and other, as we witness it now, as it erupts with frequency of which I spoke as patterns one can almost create. How every decade, every year, we have these manifestations at a colossal, cataclysmic degree of its display, with that separation between me and other plays itself out in a violent way. And particularly what's really paradoxical here, not in what I was saying, but paradoxical in that dynamic, is that the other, right, is being constantly articulated in the name of God. In the name of God. In order to claim righteousness of our position, of our ideological superiority and supremacy, we dehumanize others. We go as far as dehumanizing others in order to begin some kind of justification towards anything. Because let's not forget what we just spoke now. We all carry that burden of psychological, of that existential degree, which always deep down reminds us of our ultimate origin. But we forgo that, and this is what ignorance is. And in forgoing that, we create these artificial, superficial perspectives. And with this, we create all this variety of ways of how how to widen that separation. But going back to where your question comes from, I'm just taking opportunity to speak to the overall situation, let's say. It is impossible to do it alone because at the level of individual expression, there requires this, what is known in spiritual language as Sangha, right? That Sangha is a confluence. The term Sangha also has a synonym, right? It's not a synonym, it's a term that comes from that, Sangam. Sangam is a confluence. We could interpret the term Sangam, a confluence where individual streams of our divided sense of being has the chance to confluence and consciously offered into that where it then streams into the ocean of being of who we are. But in essence, we are but singularity. In essence, I am all there is. And likewise, you can declare in the deepest of your heart that same I am. So everything, even this, is for creating this possibility so that there is a vantage point, as we just spoke, in front of the diagrams and drawings. But the only way and the possibility I can recognize you, and I can tell you apart is because of I am. And likewise with yourself. So that this supreme aloneness is always there. And one should not be afraid of that. There's a big, huge, we could say, difference between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is a state of fragmentation. Aloneness is a state of holicity. When we are whole, we become alone. Alone, I am. All this is, I am. All this is. Everything I look at, hear, touch, recognize. I recognize myself. And on the count of recognizing myself, the further recognition takes place. First is unity, then diversity. First, I recognize myself, and then I recognize that there are differences. Let not this recognition of differences override my sense of self, which is always whole. Before any quality is this wholeness of an act of self-recognition. And that act of self-recognition dawns, a true sense of non-violence blooms in the world. We can't, every aspect of every violent quality in us is appeased, reconciled with the recognition of that aloneness. Because we recognize that other is only myself. Or at least, concessionally speaking, an aspect of myself. At least an aspect of myself. Whether at the level of the surface, it is ridden with likes and dislikes, preferences, antagonisms, it matters not. The fact that I recognize anything, I recognize it on the account of self-recognition. There's only self-recognition, and that is enlightenment. This is not awakening, this is not transformation of consciousness, this is enlightenment. When one sees everything in light of one's own self, Everything is lit by light of one's own self. Everything is recognized first and foremost as light of one's own self, which illumines everything in the first place. And that is aloneness. So this is why I said yes and no. So let that give you all the courage that you need. All the courage. And the courage comes from conviction. Courage comes from understanding. It's only when we stumble in the dark still, some portions, some parts not fully lit, doubts rise, uncertainty. Fill this with light of your own awareness. Let it shine brightly as it does. And recognize it for what it is. And that will give you tremendous courage. Tremendous courage, all the courage that you need. Thank you.